Welcome in to another new podcast from the Association for Materials Protection and Performance. My name is Ben Dubose, and I'm a staff writer with the AMP Publications team. Today, as we kick off December, we're going to be talking about the recently passed U.S. infrastructure law and what it means for people that are members at AMP and the corrosion industry at large. And so to do that, we've got a couple of guests today that I think are very insightful on this subject. They are Adam Christopher, Government Relations Manager at AMP, and Dan Adley, longtime CEO at KTA-Tator, recently retired from that role, but also very active in the association these days. And so both of them can bring some unique perspectives, I think, both from certainly Adam's position managing government relations here at AMP, and also Dan's experience, a lifetime's worth in the industry, that can provide some useful perspective about what this bill may mean for those of you listening. So I think a good place to start would be by letting each of these two men introduce themselves and give a little bit of their personal bio in the corrosion industry. Adam, let's start with you.
Perfect. Thanks, Ben, and good morning, and thanks for having me. Yeah, my name is Adam Christopher, and I'm the Manager of Government Relations for AMP. Before that, I was Manager of Government Relations for NACE International and have been in this role for 8 years. And time has flown in 8 years, just from meeting Dan the first time to where we are today, actively working on AMP's behalf. But yeah, excited to be here and talk about the infrastructure bill. It's certainly something that I've been following for several years to see how and where it will impact and finally become law. But really my goal and job for AMP is to make sure that when any kind of legislation like this or any important policies are considered before the Congress, that the perspective of corrosion engineers and corrosion professionals is included in that legislation. And so happy to dissect the infrastructure bill today and look at ways we can continue that participation and answer your questions. So excited for it. Thanks.
And Dan, the same question to you. For anyone who's not familiar with you, what's sort of your bio in the industry, if you will?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. As you indicated previously, I'm a retired CEO. It's a recent thing, stepped on after over 26 years with KTA-Tator. Broadly, we're a corrosion engineering firm. We're involved with the design and management of large industrial painting projects, protection of the nation's infrastructure, engaged with our military and protection of mobile assets, and a real range of issues associated with material selection, performance testing, field inspection, specification development, all those types of things, broadly what we might call asset protection. And we've been doing that for 75 plus years. From the association side, I've been engaged with NACE extremely actively, let's just say in the last 12 or so years. 7 or 8 of them have been with the board, ultimately becoming a at-large director for strategic planning. And throughout all that, got engaged with what used to be PPOC, Public Policy and Outreach Committee, and now is the Advocacy and Public Affairs Committee of the merged AMP Association. And it's an area I still intend to stay engaged with, even though I am retired from the business per se. I enjoy this aspect of government relations and industry advocacy.
So I think a good place to start as we transition to the infrastructure bill specifically, Adam, if you could just give us an overall legislative outline and just give us a little bit of insight into the major topics in it.
Absolutely. So as kind of I mentioned before, this bill is really the culmination of several years of work of policymakers on Capitol Hill, and that extends many administrations and many different controls of Congress. But this has constantly been one of those issues that both parties have kind of set out to finalize, and it's been the white whale, so to speak, of finding a way to get this across the finish line and to reinvesting in America's infrastructure systems throughout the country. So I'd say first and foremost, it's a historic achievement that we haven't seen in generations in terms of investment into the infrastructure systems that are out there. And it's not something, I think, when people hear the word infrastructure and they'll look at this bill, they may maybe consider that it's just something that will pertain to roads and bridges. But I think one of the great things about this legislation is it's extremely comprehensive, and it touches almost all aspects of the American economy and the industrial life that's out there, from yes, bridges and improving bridge safety throughout the country, but also to drinking water systems, to replacing lead pipes, to making sure that there's proper corrosion control for water pipes, to make sure that lead doesn't leak into the systems like it sadly did in Flint and Newark and other places. There's large investments into public transit, including freight rail, and passenger rail safety issues. I know that's something that our membership has seen in the past on some issues and challenges related to corrosion there. There's investments in waterway infrastructure, such as port improvement programs throughout the country. There's pipeline safety and repair provisions in there. So there's really a large myriad of investments and historic investments into a lot of different areas that will really transform and improve the infrastructure throughout the country. So I think the key highlight for me is, one, we're finally here to that point where we've signed this into law. Two, this is one of the highest, if not largest, investments into the infrastructure system that we've ever seen. And three, that kind of extends to so many different areas that it's really going to transform how we prepare for the future and make sure that we are the leading technology systems in the world.
And Dan, from your perspective, if you could jump in, what does the infrastructure bill that Adam just gave us the outline on, what does that mean for the corrosion industry at large?
Well, I'm not certain that I'm in a position to speak for the entirety of the industry, but I'll offer my perspective. Everything that Adam, just described is physical infrastructure. So one of the things we have to understand is our industry, and we're looking at this, is a $1.2 trillion investment in physical infrastructure. To the best of my knowledge, from everything I've seen, essentially every dollar of this is to go to physical infrastructure in one of those many categories that Adam just outlined. And as you look at any of those, be it highways and bridges, which is not the only thing, but still remains the dominant at 46%. But if you look at transit, rail, railroad, the energy grid, water and wastewater, ports, maritime, and water infrastructures, aviation. You can't think of any of them that don't involve materials of a construction where AMP members have a role. And that role might be in making certain that the designs, the material selection, and the physical design of these infrastructure projects is done in such a way that the asset is protected for as long as possible. It all needs to be done in a sustainable manner. And that has AMP written all over it, from the front end design, selection of materials, and specification for long-term corrosion protection systems. AMP has a role, next step, in making sure that the contractors that perform the work and those that observe the quality of the performance are trained, certified, and can perform that work so that these long-term benefits are achieved. And I'm not certain where, but I suspect on the tail end of the long-term operations and maintenance and management of these facilities, that AMP or AMP membership have roles in assuring the long-term sustainable protection and management of the infrastructure we're going to be investing in. It's just huge numbers, 1.2 trillion overall, some of it over a 10-year, but much concentrated in the first 5 years. And there's within that $550 billion in new infrastructure. So it's not even maintenance, it's new projects. And I don't see a singular aspect of it, quite frankly, Ben. I'd put it away differently. I don't see a single aspect of that investment that doesn't create some role or opportunity for AMP membership.
So what can AMP member companies or even an individual per se do to prepare themselves? I'm sure there's people that hear this and they see potential opportunities, but of course there's only a select number of groups, companies, organizations, people that are going to be able to take advantage of these. So how can someone prepare themselves as best as possible for what's going to be coming?
Well, I'll take the first crack at this, and I'll probably tee it up for Adam to go a little bit deeper. But interestingly, Ben, we just got off of a group committee call of the Advocacy and Public Affairs Committee, and we were talking about goals and objectives for the upcoming years. One of the overarching things that we'd like to see is to motivate and engage AMP members to be advocates for our association, more importantly, our industry, what we do as professionals. And I believe this Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act creates a unique opportunity for every individual member to get engaged. And I'll give you some ideas. One is calling your local state representatives, be they a congressional representative or a senatorial representative for the district that you live in, or perhaps your business is located in. Engage them in the conversation, because much of this funding is going to flow, all of it is going to flow ultimately through the states, some of which they have immediate control over, other they have to apply for through grants. And those are going to create opportunities for AMP membership to participate in. But if you reached out to your local representatives and just asked them the simple question, how is our state receiving these funds? What's its vision? How they to be dispersed? And are we incorporating sound corrosion design, management, and oversight provisions in the utilization of these funds to ensure that our investment is sustainable? I think it's an easy task. Our legislators at the local level, largely, at least in my experience, seem to be inclined to have conversations with constituents because they know it's important to it. And if your business is located there, it's even more so. It may inspire you, or once you get over the perhaps discomfort of reaching out and talking to a regulator, or a legislator, maybe you bump it up and you find your congressional representative or senatorial representative to the U.S. Congress and reach out to their offices. I doubt that you're going to speak to the congressman directly. Let's not be naive, but they'll have someone within their office that deals with infrastructure. We'll just broadly categorize it as. Ask to talk to them and relay the same message. We want to make sure as AMP, as an association, that these funds are used in a sustainable, beneficial way to the country. And you're there to help, and the association's there to help. I'll stop there and bounce it off to Adam and see how his perspective.
No, that's extremely right, Dan. I would say that the most important thing to kind of keep in mind in this entire process is, one, the bill has been signed and everything is, but the process is not done. The process of implementing this massive investment and changes in policy is going to take months and years into the future. And so as a part of that, we as an organization and you as a corrosion professional want to be engaged, like Dan said, to make sure that this funding and these changes in policies, they're protected and they set us up for success in the future with asset integrity, with sustainability, and all of those key infrastructure and buzzwords that are out there. But the most important part of that is for us to be a part of the process to make sure that the policymakers understand the need for actively planning and engaging and making sure that things are protected. I think that's one of the reasons our infrastructure is in the state of disrepair that it is in today, is that we haven't had that traditional focus of making sure the best policies are in place to make sure the assets are properly maintained. And I know I'm probably preaching to the choir of all the listeners here, but that's important for us to continue making sure that our voice is heard and that your voice is heard. And then on the other kind of part of your question, Ben, of how can an AMP member make sure that it's that they're ready for all these opportunities that are out there. Part of my role at AMP is to make sure that we are the resource to you all so that you can understand and see clearly the opportunities that are out there. And so over the next few weeks and months, we're going to continue on this infrastructure message, not just podcasts, but probably webcasts and other documents to help show you all the summaries of where funding is, where the priorities are, and provide you the information to participate in the process for you as an individual as well, and for your businesses and your future as well. So I'd encourage you to be a part of the process and see this as an active engagement to really making sure that the world that we create from this legislation is where we want to be. And I wish we had more Dans, and we can get more Dans and recruit more Dans to help us in that process.
Another way of, I think, tackling a similar subject, Adam, what are some of the common questions that you've already gotten, or I guess because we're still in the relative infancy, it hasn't even been a month yet since this has been signed into law. So perhaps a better way of phrasing it, what are some of the questions that you anticipate getting in your role from people that are just sort of curious how they can get involved?
Yeah, I think a lot of individuals understand and members understand, what has happened. It's significant. And now the question becomes, how can I participate, and what does this mean for me and my bottom line? And that's quite frankly understandable. They want to be a part of the new policies that are out there. So really, that general question of how do I get involved is a first question that probably a lot of people want to ask, but maybe just aren't sure where to go. I'm glad to offer myself as a resource to help you connect with that state policymaker, or help get the right contact information for that member of Congress or staff. But just connecting with me and others within AMP to ask the questions, we can usually point you in the right direction and help you find the best way to do that. I would say after that, a lot of people want to clearly see what's in the bill, because there's been a lot of things that have been discussed over the summer, and summaries will be provided, and there's links out there that I can send, and I've sent in some documents, and will send in others in the future. I'm actually working on a chart right now that kind of pulls up all the summaries of all the funding that would be of interest to our members, and we'll be distributing that very soon, within weeks. So those kind of things, getting the right resources, understanding how to get involved, I think are probably the two questions that come at the initial side. And then just reviewing, how you and your businesses fit into that equation. Are you in the bridge safety world? Are you in the water systems drinking world? Navigating the waters and understanding your role is, I think, also something important that our members can do. Dan, do you have anything that you want to add there? I know that you come at this probably differently than I, since you've been a member for so long and see kind of the real world aspect of the policy side.
Well, I think for right now, it's actually only 2 weeks since the bill has been signed into law. Mm-hmm. I don't know anybody personally that's read all of it. I know there's lots of things out there where people they analyze it and they look at it from different perspectives. And therefore, I guess one thing I'd suggest is, if you're going to look at a source, look at multiple sources, because they cut and dice the bill differently. If you simply Google Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, you'll get a great inventory. One I looked at yesterday was by McKinsey and Company, a very well graphic presentation of the breakdown of funding and how it's being allocated. I have subscriptions to both Wall Street Journal and New York Times. They both analyze it, a little bit different perspective, but you can get a lot of insights from those. So that's one thing. But let's move to the association. a transition team that's been working on integrating two wonderful legacy organizations, SSPC and NACE, into AMP, has been dealing and confronted with lots of issues. One of the ones that they recognize is extremely important to the membership, and that is what's going to happen with local chapters, sections, areas, those types of things. I'm going to suggest that in the interim, until it's all shaken out, have meetings, talk about the Infrastructure Act and how we as the association can get engaged to make sure that we get the integrity of our assets and the sustainability that we want from these huge investments. And that's done by certified and accredited personnel who understand the design, management, and construction of infrastructure. So that would be my suggestion, is try and engage at your section, chapter, area levels and have local conversations about this. And maybe that dominoes into conversations with local representatives from either the legislative side or perhaps it's some agency. Maybe you invite the district engineer from your Department of Transportation or those types of things. I think that's the best way. All you'll see right now are people looking at the letter of the act and how it's allocating funding. The rest we're going to learn, because as Adam pointed out, this isn't the end of the journey. It's been a long, arguably ugly journey to get to the end point, but we got a strong, robust bill. It's a monumental bill, and the real work is just beginning.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to characterize it. And Dan, when I think about your career, one thing that always comes back to me is collaborative when I think of ways to describe you, because certainly you've had a lot of success at KTA and the various stops along the way for you, but you've still been very involved and are still very involved with the association and the industry at large. And so it sounds like what you're saying is don't look at it strictly through the lens of, you yourself, your company. Really, it's getting involved, as you said, with the association, these committees. It's finding ways to work together. It can get you the best response. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words, Ben. And it's certainly not my expression, but a rising tide floats all boats or ships, whatever the expression is.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the way we should look at it, is that the investment has been made. It's done. The dollars have been allocated. Now we need to seize the opportunity to make sure it's done in a beneficial way. And while it could in the surface appeal self-serving, I truly believe in my heart that we have an obligation in our profession to make sure that these funds are used in an effective and efficient, long-term, beneficial way to protect our country's infrastructure.
As we wrap up with Adam Christopher and Dan Adley talking about the recently passed U.S. infrastructure law and what it means as far as the implications for AMP members. For anyone listening who has more specific questions about the bill, what the role of AMP is, what they should do, basically anyone who wants to follow up with either of you two, how can they do that? Adam, we'll start with you.
Yeah, and I'll just put one more plug in to say that we will and are compiling resources, and we'll have a landing page for infrastructure resources with a lot of this information on it, upcoming events and webcasts and other things. So please do keep in contact. Dan put it perfectly. This is the start of the journey, and we all need to be together on this to really make a difference. But my email address is adam.christopher, CHRISTOPHER @amp.org. Please feel free to email me. I'm glad and look forward to meeting and talking to anybody about this, because we need to be together on this. If we're not there to make the pitch for protecting assets and sustainability and asset integrity, then there's no one else out there that has the expertise and passion that we do. So please reach out to me. Look forward to meeting everybody. And Ben, thank you for doing this today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time. And Dan, as we wrap up, same question to you. If anybody wants more information from you or to get in touch, how can they do that?
Well, I think that, Adam is the best contact for more information about the bill and how the association's responding to it.
Mm-hmm.
To the extent that I can offer any insights to anybody, I am a retired CEO, but I still have my KTA address and still do, I'm a fellow, if you will. So it's D Adley, ADLEY, at KTA.com. And I'm happy to entertain and respond to any inquiries.
Good stuff. Folks, this is where we will wind down today. As always, thank you for listening. For Adam Christopher and Dan Adley, my name is Ben Dubose. Thank you for listening. And if you want more insight, you can always check out ampp.org. That's the official website for AMP.